And we have a special guest, immigration attorney here in studio to talk about a new policy memo that took place recently. Basically, what this is doing, it's raising questions about how some immigrants can obtain their green cards. Will they have to return to their home countries to complete the process? Well, joining us to talk about it is Jamene Christian, immigration attorney, joining us for what we were just talking about in a commercial break, something that kind of seemed to slip under the headlines, but this is huge news, especially for anyone who is in the process thinking about it or might have loved ones, family members, husband, wife, children, all trying to get their green cards. Can you take us through what this new memo is?
Right, exactly. And you're spot on, Faith, and thank you for having me back. Absolutely. This new memo, and it is a memo, it's not law, right? Only Congress can change law, and it's not an executive order. This new memo is informing people that you can go under extreme discretionary scrutiny when you're now applying for a green card. Because normally if you come in with lawful status, so we're thinking about student visas, visitors, business people, exchange students, normally you can adjust status, get your green card here. But it's not a right, it's a privilege. So it's always been the case that it's discretionary. When the USCIS officer is processing your application, it's discretionary. But this memo is telling USCIS officers to use that discretion and to kind of slant it in a negative way. Look at the disfavorables of the particular applicant as opposed to the favorables. So that's the new thing. And it's just guidance. It just hit. The memo was written on Thursday, dropped on Friday, long weekend. So this is the first day that we're really dealing with it.
For those who aren't familiar with it, who wrote the memo? Where did it come from? And you say that it's a memo, not law. So what does it really mean?
Okay, who wrote the memo? Everything is out of the Department of Homeland Security, and they have jurisdiction over the USCIS, which is the immigration service that will process people to get their green cards. So they wrote the memo. And what does it mean? Actually, it's a memo for the officers telling them how to do their job, to use discretion. And the thing here is they've always had discretion, right? So now the memo is saying use it. Because normally when you think of adjustment of status, if you're eligible, if you entered the country lawfully, you have no criminal history, married to a U.S. citizen, the thought process is, yeah, I'm eligible, won't be a problem. But this memo is saying, no, officers, dig deeper. And if they don't qualify, they have to go back to their home country to process for the green card.
Have we seen cases of those who are in the process waiting to get their green card? For example, the person who just got married to an American citizen now applying for that process. Have we seen instances of people getting deported while waiting for the status?
Absolutely, because in this new administration, if you don't have status, you're open for deportation. So you either have to be a U.S. citizen, green card holder, or here lawfully on a visitor's visa, business visa. If you are applying for green cards, you do not have status, so you can absolutely be deported. And that's unfortunate because that was never the case in the past.
And I was going to ask you that. So this is something new that we're seeing under the Trump administration.
Yes, and it is the law, right? If you don't have status, but it was never enforced. Because if a person didn't have a criminal background and they were just waiting, you wait. And you wait for USCIS to adjudicate, process the application, and then you go on as life as normal. But under this new administration, if you don't have status, it's fair game.
And can you just expand on that and clarify who exactly would be impacted by this?
Wow, that's a good question. So like we said in the past, visitors, business visitors, students, and here's the big thing, even U.S. citizens, because as you said, if you married a foreign national and they have a pending green card application, and if they have to go back to their home country, you have U.S. citizen spouses, children now being separated from their loved ones because now they're back in their home country waiting an expanded time to come back in. And the coming back in part is the problem, because if they're deemed inadmissible because maybe they've had a criminal activity, nothing major, but something that can be used against them.
I mean, you're talking about unpaid speeding tickets, not showing up for this.
Exactly. Parking tickets, not paying your taxes. We don't know how this extraordinary discretion, we don't really know how it's going to look.
Or even speeding tickets.
Yeah. So traditionally speaking, if you have negative interaction, that's the term I like to use, negative interaction with law enforcement, and you have an overstay, you can be barred from coming back from 3 to 10 years. So think about the U.S. citizens back at home who are their loved ones.
And that was another question talking about time.
Mm-hmm.
How much time does it typically take to do this process?
Well, inside the country, right now, it could take 2.5 years, but it's okay because you're with your loved ones, right? You're here in the United States. But think about having to leave the United States to get your green card under the guidance of this new memo. And again, it's not law. 245A, part of the Immigration Nationality Act, is still good law. But imagine if you have to leave the United States because they're found that, well, you don't qualify, we don't like what we're seeing on paper. We're talking about 3 years, 4 years maybe, where you're separated from your loved ones.
Has there been any pushback against this? And if somebody finds himself in a situation like that where, okay, mom has to go back to her country, dad has to go back to his country, I'm assuming people will call your office and see what they can do, what are their options. Are there any options?
Well, there are always options, right? There are waivers, right? If you can make a case for extreme hardship, you put in a waiver, and hopefully it's cited in your favor. You can come back in, right? Maybe a little earlier, not having to wait the long, process drawn out. And we always think about challenging this in court. And this weekend, past weekend, immigration attorneys, we had no Memorial Day weekend. Right. The listservs, where we stay in community with one another, and lawsuits will be filed. This will be challenged.
And so what I'm hearing is if somebody is finding themselves in this situation, it's going to be a potential waiver or a lawsuit that could get them back home. Also, when you say discretionary, I mean, this is kind of up to the ICE officers on what they want to do or not do. Is that correct?
Well, it's the USCIS officers who are
USCIS.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. They're processing the application. So discretion was always part of the law since the 1950s when adjustment of status was put into law by Congress. But this memo is a reminder to the officers to use that discretion and use it with a heavy hand.
For people already in the process of applying, should this be something top of mind for them? Should they be concerned about this?
Absolutely top of mind. Should be concerned. You're not dead in the water, but we know now you have to do more. You have to want to show your favorables versus the unfavorables when you're presenting your case, right? So you want to show good moral character, right? You volunteer in the community, you pay your taxes, you do all the good things, the neighbors are not knocking on your door saying you're playing your music loudly, and you want to make sure your social media is, you want to make sure there are no anti-American statements, rhetoric, things of that nature. So you're not dead in the water, you can still apply, and we're telling our clients, our potential clients, you don't withdraw your petition. You do apply if you're eligible, and we're here to help you as immigration attorneys, but you might need more evidence. And
we know that this was a federal memo, but let's bring it back here to home.
Okay.
What impact could we see here in our state, in Georgia?
Well, Georgia's now an international city thanks to the Olympics in 1996. So we have a lot of immigrants here doing wonderful things. And of course, they're going to feel this as well. But we also have great immigration attorneys here as well. So we're here to represent potential clients, and we're here to say don't panic. And definitely do not leave. Some people might read this memo if they're not being represented and saying, oh, I guess I have to go back to my home country and process. No, don't do that. Let's just wait it out. Let's see what it's going to look like on the ground, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. What's your message to those who might look at something like this and say, well, like you said, this has always been the law. They're just now being told to use their discretion. I don't see the issue here.
Well, what I would say is it has always been the law, but it has never been this harsh, right? And that is, we don't really know what it's going to look like. Again, this is day one. So probably in about 30 days or so, as immigration attorneys, we'll have a better way to inform our clients about what's going on. But for now, it has been the law, but we've never seen it handled in this way with this extraordinary circumstances. And we need to see, because they didn't provide a definition. In the memo, there's no definition for the new language that's being used. So we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see at this point.
And is there anything happening right now? You said lawsuits will come. Can you give us kind of a, peel the onion back for those who aren't too familiar with this space? What could those lawsuits look like? How long would they take to come? And what exactly would those lawsuits be? What type of accusations would those lawsuits be coming after?
Right. So what we would probably be looking at, of course, it would be in federal court, right? And what the lawsuits would basically say is that the Department of Homeland Security is overstepping their jurisdiction because only Congress, right, can write law, implement law, can legislate. So the lawsuits would be essentially saying, dial it back. Let's put the peels back on the onion. And if you want to make an adjustment of status, getting your green card, totally different, let Congress say this is how it's going to be. So that's what the lawsuits will be saying. Like, you do not have authority with a memo, think about that, a memo, to change old and true law from the 1950s and affect so many people overnight. And it's essentially, this is an overnight thing.
Now, and I'm learning as everybody else is learning, and I have a question for you. I mean, could something like this, once again, a memo, not necessarily a change in law, but what I'm hearing is there could be potential for more harsh enforcement. I mean, it kind of brings me back to what we saw in Minneapolis.
Right.
Could we see something like that happen here in Georgia, or is this less about detaining and more about those who are already in the system? You're going to have to wait back in your home country to process.
I think it's more of the latter, more about let's get people out of the United States, and we don't have to do it with the heavy hand of ICE, right? This memo it's kind of seeming soft on the surface, but it will have the same consequence, having people leave, right, and leave the country. That's why I started by saying, don't leave. If you're reading this memo, wait. As the kids say, take a beat. You wait and you see how it's going to be implemented. So here in Georgia, again, we have a lot of immigrants. We have a lot of pending applications. But again, adjustment of status is kind of like, it's the bread and butter of USCIS. This is what they do. So these people came into the country lawfully, so they shouldn't be punished, right? And now they're adjusting status because they married U.S. citizens for the most part, or now they qualify from a different angle. So these aren't your hardened criminals. These are just people who followed the law, came in, and it seems as if the policy has just changed overnight.
Oh, wow. So let's, once again, just to reiterate for those who might just be joining us, we're talking about the new memo put out by the Department of Homeland Security. If somebody finds themselves in this situation, I know you broke it down earlier, but just one more time to reiterate before we go, what are the options? What should someone do if they find themselves, not just the person, but a loved one, a family member?
Right, and it's not self-serving, but absolutely contact an immigration attorney. Now is not the time to DIY your life, because this is a life, this is a life matter, right? You have families involved, so many people involved. Contact a knowledgeable immigration attorney, get the information you need. Don't do anything on your own, right? Again, you don't have status, so kind of follow the rules of the law, follow the rules of the road, all of those good things. And I always say this, we're here to help you, and there's a wonderful platform, justanswer.com, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where you can go online anonymously, speak with verified immigration attorneys. You can even speak with me, have your questions answered, proceed accordingly, and we'll probably tell you, go and see an immigration attorney in your community. But for now, stay put, don't depart the country.
And just for those who might say, okay, I need to go see an immigration attorney, but I don't have any money to pay an attorney. Attorneys are expensive. What are their options now?
Well, there are pro bono, right? You have attorneys who will assist you free of charge or scale based on your salary. And there are a lot of agencies out here who will represent clients for free. So you're not at a loss.
And I'm assuming the search engine that you said, is that one of the questions that somebody could ask?
Oh, absolutely. And you will get a good answer from verified immigration attorneys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Jamene, for joining us and just giving us a little look inside your world, especially with this new memo coming out. I'm sure we will be checking in with you very soon.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure being here, Faith. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.